there was a bunch of things in that. Like I wanted to say like yes to kind of every opportunity that came along because I was like such a no guy before, but it was still cool. It was actually at the Emmys last year. I got to do it like the
Hell
virtual
yeah.
press room at the Emmys. So it was awesome. I also got John Oliver and Jason Sudeikis. So that was like a cool friggin' day. That was awesome. But my favorite one is probably the kids in the hall. They were amazing, like Canadian legends. I was super nervous. It was early on. I'd interviewed people before, but like not really at that level. And then they just put me at ease right away, like made a couple jokes. I did it from my kitchen. The camera was like faced the other way. I didn't have the blur on yet. And it was like my stove was in the, and they like made some jokes about that, and it was great. It honestly like set the table perfectly. No kitchen pun intended.
It's Johnny Late Night! And now here's your host, Johnny Rogers!
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Johnny Rogers Show. This is episode number 84, and I'm going to be doing things a little bit differently now. I usually have like a scripted intro where it's, I don't know about you. I watch it back and I'm like, this is boring me. I feel bored. And I get that it's like, I do this on YouTube as well. So there's this video element now that I think was getting too much into my head of like how I appeared, if that makes any sense at the start. I wanted the podcast to feel professional, but I realized something that, I was just on Just Chill with Oliver George's podcast with Oliver George, who's a former guest of the show. And I mentioned that, like, one of the biggest videos on my channel is the Wiz Khalifa video of him saying, yeah, yup, like whatever it was, 66 times. And how that's the dumbest video on my channel, but it has the most amount of views.
There's a lot of other stuff on your channel. You had like a video of Wiz Khalifa.
Yeah.
And I actually wanted to know how long that edit took because it was.
Oh my God. So
do you know who he is? No, he's a rapper.
Yeah, I've heard it.
He was on Rogan a while back, and I remember watching that episode and being kind of annoyed that he kept saying that.
Yeah, me too.
It was yep. Every time
question.
that was his agreement statement.
Yeah.
And so
you rolling a joint.
Johnny made a video, an edit of him saying it 66 times in a row, the whole episode. But did that take you a really long time to do? Or?
It took me a really long time, but I knew I had to do it. And like,
it got big views.
Yeah, I got huge views. They're the biggest thing on my channel, and it's so stupid. And that's what makes me so mad about it, because I'm like, I put so much heart and soul into so many things, and it's like 10 views, 30 views,
oh God,
100
I know
views.
that feeling.
I'm like, what am I doing?
It's
and then
soul crushing
the dumbest thing ever, 50,000 views or something. Like, what? And I've been fighting against that, I think, of like, no, it has to be prepared and professional and whatever. But when I think about some of my favorite podcasts, the introductions, whether it's, WTF with Mark Maron, or Ari Shafir's Skeptic Tank. See, I'm going to leave that in, that little mistake right there, because that's what podcasting is. It doesn't have to be perfectly edited every single time. But when I think of those podcasts, they have like long, kind of unscripted intros, and it's more for the listener, because I actually don't admittedly watch a lot of podcasts. I'll maybe watch like Your Mom's House with Tom Segura and Christina Pazitsky, because like there's this really good video element. Like they're mostly reacting to stuff. So there's that. But most podcasts I listen to. So by doing this weird kind of presenter voice at the beginning, I feel like I'm taking something away from the listener. People on video are like, yeah, Johnny, I can see that you smoked a joint before you recorded this intro. So people listening though are just like, oh, this is nice. He's kind of ranting. He's kind of doing his thing right now. But I love Bill Burr too. I'm mentioning a lot of other podcasts, which is always fun. But Bill Burr just rants to himself kind of about what's been going on. And then this is going to fully give you the Johnny Rogers Show. You're getting, week by week kind of snapshots of what's happening in my life. And by giving them those short, very scripted, very robotic intros, I don't think you're getting me, and that's not what I'm about. I don't want to be inauthentic with you guys. If you're getting that kind of scripted, very news tony presentation from me. I want it to be a news video, separate those things a lot. Yeah, I was talking about being more freestyle with my intros. Patreon, if you want these episodes completely ad-free before everyone else, I always try to make sure that I get it up on Patreon before it releases to the public. Just go to patreon.com/TheJohnnyRogers. I'm also going to start uploading when I have like good quality stand-up sets. I'm going to upload my full set to there, so you can actually watch like the progression of these bits as I'm working on forming an hour of comedy, so that I can start really getting bigger shows if I have more time, right? So you're going to be able to see the evolution of these bits and when I decide to do new stuff. So if you're a fan of that stuff too, definitely go to Patreon, subscribe there. Last night, I'm debating on uploading my set from last night. Last minute set at Absolute Comedy, and it was okay. I don't know. I didn't like it. But when do I ever like my own sets? Broadhead Brewery, that was a fun show. But like Absolute Comedy, I don't know what it was, because the last time that I was there in Orleans, it was a great show. It was a great show. And I was happy with my set, but I was still like, there's some things that I can change or work on to get to tighten it, and words I should have said instead of what I said in the moment. But this set, it was just like a train wreck from the beginning. I don't know. I'll tell you what happened. There was this one table off to the right, and they just wouldn't shut the fuck up. Karen, God bless her soul, she came over and she told them, like, can you guys please, like, just keep it down for the love of God? Like, there's a comedy show happening right beside you. It's not that big of a room. It's literally right beside them. They're beside the stage. And they just kept talking to each other. And what's worse is they were laughing at their own jokes. It's like, go sit in another room if that's what you're going to do with your time. You're there for a comedy show. Laugh at who's on stage, or don't laugh if it's not funny. That's fair. I'd rather that. I'd rather someone paying attention and not laughing if they didn't like the joke than just talking because they don't care that we're on stage doing our thing, even though they paid to come see a comedy show. That always blows my mind. But what would happen was, because this table was talking so frequently, even after being told, the room got weird because the room couldn't really pay attention to the comedian because they're kind of also half paying attention to this conversation that's bubbling into laughter over off into the corner. So the comedians had a really hard time. I mean, I should say all of them had a hard time. Like, they did very well considering, and David killed it, the headliner. But even he kept having to have conversations with these people, kept turning over and talking to these people. And what killed me was, I was like, I did my setup, and then on the first word of my punchline, they laughed really high, really loud on the first word, which doesn't usually happen. It's only a 2-word punchline. So usually you wait until you hear the full name. So I just said the first part of it. I get this huge laugh that then the room doesn't hear the rest of the punchline. So they interrupt with this weird, loud laugh on the first word, and then the rest of the room doesn't get it, and then it just goes back to silence. And I was like, oh. It just felt weird. I powered through. I did my thing. It just felt like such a weird set. But if you want to see me do more comedy and you live in the Brockville area, Brockville, Ontario, I'm going to be there June 15th at the Keystorm, 8 p.m. Headliner is Logan Brown, who is actually also a former guest on the podcast as well. And it's produced by my guest today. My guest today is a podcaster as well. He's a writer. He's a stand-up comedian. He was the winner of the Just for Laughs stand-up and pitch competition in 2022. And his podcast, the Canadian Comedy Hall of Fame podcast, was actually named one of the top 20 comedy podcasts in Canada. Plus, he has performed on some of the biggest Take that back. Plus, he has performed at some of the biggest comedy clubs in Canada. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for my guest today and my friend and yours, Chad Noonan.
So when I'm just thinking about like comedy and like my past couple years in comedy, I would say it's yes, which is like the simplest, smallest word ever.
Nice.
But
no, I like that.
Yeah, but that's what I did. I just didn't say no for, a year.
That's the best. Was it Jim Carrey's Yes Man that influenced you?
No, not even. I don't even know. It's probably some loser TikTok mom that influenced me.
She's like, just say yes to everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, that's what I did though. I was just like, I'm gonna take every show, every thing, and so there was a bunch of things involved with that. Are you recording?
Yeah, we're already
people
recording.
ask that.
Yeah. No, it's all good.
There was a bunch of things in that. Like I wanted to say like yes to kind of every opportunity that came along because I was like such a no guy before. And there was like opportunities came up in life to do cool stuff, and for whatever reason I didn't pursue it. And then the other thing is I just wanted to send one email a day that would is kind of a long shot. You know, like one email, like it's so simple just to type out one email a day that is like taking a shot at something. Whether it be for my podcast or for stand up, or I wrote a TV show, so whether it be for that.
Which congratulations, that was the JFL pitch, right?
Yeah, which so like that was one of those emails where it's like, I mean, me and the guy I wrote it with was like, okay, we're just gonna apply, send this to JFL. Like that was, you know, it's a long shot. We're nobodies.
What's the worst that's gonna happen though?
And that's always it, is like the worst somebody can say is no. Like that's so minor. Like people are so
it's crazy
though
how it's funny almost like when we say no a lot to things, it's because we're actually scared of the word no.
I know.
We're scared of being told no, you can actually, you know, achieve what you want to achieve. And that's why you're turning it down so that your body doesn't even have to go through it's like you're it's like you're predicting pain and deciding that like you don't want to go through that without even feeling what that pain actually is, you know? Because sometimes you fail at something and you go, oh, that wasn't that bad. Like I learned a lot of stuff and now I can get even better.
Exactly. Like you've bombed.
Oh yeah. For the first like 6 years.
Everybody has. Yeah. And it's like nobody else is thinking about that when you leave. Like you're the only person that's going to think about it. And like now it's like I'm not bombing sets, like, but like if a joke I tried didn't work, like so what? Like nobody else is thinking about that joke.
Yeah,
you know.
I heard Ari Shafir actually put it in a really funny way. He said, when I'm trying a new joke and it bombs, I know that it has to bomb probably at least 7 times before I figure it out. So after the 4th bomb, I'm like, okay, 3 more left. Like it's just, it's like he's working out, right? Like it's like we even use that same terminology for working on a joke, but it is working out. It's like getting the repetitions in on the joke to make it actually work.
Yeah, and you're probably at the point now that you know like how to get, like how not to completely bomb. Like you know what I mean? Like
I know how to save it.
Yeah, exactly. Like I can walk up there and I'm like, okay, I'm like, there's times where it's like doesn't go well, but like I know I'm not going to, like I know like what I'm going to start with and what I'm going to end with is going to work. It's like sometimes the shit in the middle that doesn't make sense.
And you know that you've done it enough times that the material is actually funny. You're like, people have laughed at this. It's just you guys.
Yeah. It's only you.
Yeah.
Manitic.
Never really blame Manitic specifically. Never really like I never really like to blame the audience, but you can almost like fault set and setting. Like if the room isn't a good room for comedy, if the people haven't been prepared that this is a comedy show that's happening, like there's so many factors. If people in the crowd are too drunk and the show's just starting, like so many things can derail what would normally be great jokes if they were sat and listened to in the way that they're supposed to be listened to, right?
And then that's just where you're like, oh, you gotta change your approach sometimes, like, you know. So that I think that that's where the don't blame the audience thing is. It's like, oh, like you can't blame the audience because you weren't prepared to change or weren't willing to adapt on the fly. Like, you know, we did a show, and this was like early on when I started doing it, and somebody, I forget the whole circumstances of it, but like everybody was going up and just doing their set, nobody was doing really well, and then somebody went up and just like made fun of the audience the whole time, and the one guy's like, yeah, you guys didn't see that? They just wanted to be made fun of. Like they were just that type of crowd. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. Like I didn't realize that, but now I can like, look at a crowd and be like, oh, this is what they want.
Yeah.
They want something different. They want people to address the drunk lady who keeps talking. They want that. They don't want you to just, be quiet or not address that person, right?
It's easy to pick that out if you're further along in the lineup, I find. But if you're like the dangerous spot about going first or taking the bullet is you are the test subject for the rest of the comedians. They are going to judge this entire crowd based on how you're interacting with them on stage. When I just did Broadhead Brewery with like Laugh Lounge's satellite show, I said something in a joke, and then one guy just yelled out "yup," like he just wanted to join in. And in my head I'm like, that could be taken so many ways. Like I could ignore that he did that and just keep trying to roll into my next joke, or I could just take a moment and laugh because that was funny, like him just yelling "yup," and my reaction helped the rest of the crowd kind of be like, oh, he's with us, like this guy gets it. Like, because I just started making fun of his Canadian accent and saying and went into a whole bit that in my mind, that's the fun part about being a comedian is you always find your way to your next bit. You can just like, even if you're improvising a little bit, you can be like, okay, I can work how I can get into this next thing just from that little bit of improv. And that's kind of like the magic that I love about comedy. And to them, it seems conversational.
And I like that little bit of chaos, like nothing too crazy, but I like when there's something that happens that's off script. Like every time I want one thing to happen that's like a little off script. Like it doesn't have to be, this huge thing, a fight breaks up out in a crowd or somebody throws something. Like I just want like this little bit of chaos, where but that still works out. Like sometimes obviously the chaos doesn't work, right? Like it's nice when it does. So I always say, like, when people are like, oh, they're really chatty or something, I was like, awesome. Like I like that when they're chatting about the show, if they're chatting amongst themselves, but if they're like always kind of responding, I'm like, oh, they're engaged, you know what I mean? This is gonna be fun.
Oh, it's the best when you can just feel that like heightened energy of a crowd that's just ready to see comedy. You're like, this is going to be fun.
Exactly. Yeah. With all different types of people in the crowd too. Like I really like that,
Oh yeah. Especially that. So we're both Brockville boys, both grew up in Brockville. When did you decide like, I'm going to try comedy, or like, I want to be a comedian?
It was I still don't know if I want to be a comedian. That's funny. Like I don't know what I want to do. So it's all just like complete happenstance, complete crap luck for me. I was I work for the Canadian Comedy Hall of Fame. Like I do their social media and marketing, and I actually have a podcast that I do with the Canadian Comedy Hall of Fame. That was doing like very well. We've had like big guests on, like I had the Kids in the Hall and Jim Belushi, and
nice.
I got to have a couple questions with Lorne Michaels, so it was going well, and it's really cool. So I was pitching the Hall of Fame on like, oh, we should do some type of stage show where it's like, because they're all things comedy, where it's like a sketch act, a stand-up, a musical comedy, an improv. It's all hosted by one guy, and maybe there's an interview, kind of like how I do an interview on my podcast. And the guy who runs Hall of Fame is like, yeah, cool, that's a great idea. And I was like, awesome, I can help produce it, I'll look for a host. He's like, you should host. And I was like, absolutely not. Like my background's in radio, I'm used to like being behind a microphone, not in front of people. He's like, no, I think you should host. It was your idea, you should host. And he was like kind of a little bit adamant on it. And I was like, oh shit, like I have no idea. Like I was with the Hall of Fame, so I've been to tons of stand-up that year. Just from working with them. And then I decided like, okay, I know that it's not going to be perceived well if I'm hosting a comedy show and I don't do comedy. Like
people are like, what? How the fuck?
Yeah. Other comedians, like I care about their opinion more than any crowd, right? Like, so I didn't want to be like, I'm taking a spot from someone or anything. So I was kind of like, oh, I will do a couple open mics to kind of prove to myself that I'm not the right person for this.
Sure. You could almost be like, I went out, I did it, and it sucks.
And
so
I'm not
that's
the guy.
why you should pick a different guy.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
like in my head. I'm telling
Okay.
myself
The
that.
defeatist mentality.
That's me though. That's always like how
You're
I
like, I'll find a
am.
way to
That's
self-sabotage
like
this. Yeah.
saying the no thing, right? So I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah.
went to Toronto a few times, did a few open mics, and they like went well. Like they went better than I thought. Like I wrote like a 5 minutes and it did well. And then for certain circumstances, I just wasn't doing it in Ottawa. And even though I live in Brockville. So once those did well, I did like one at Comedy Bar, just like the bucket show. And there's a couple people that were like,
It's a
oh,
fun
you
show.
should yeah, it's a super fun show.
Yeah.
And they came up to me after and they're like, oh, you're from Ottawa. And I was like, yeah, I'm actually from Brockville. They're like, here, you should do this show in Ottawa and all this stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. So I ended up, after doing it for some time in Toronto, I signed up for the comedy class at Absolute. And I was like, oh, I'll meet other comedians, not realizing that no comedian does the comedy class. Right.
No.
So I do this class and it's fun. Like it was awesome because you have to like write something every week. And then when they do like the showcase of the class. And I've been like coming with like new bits every week and everything. And we'd already talked to the guy and he's like, oh, you've done this before. Clearly you've been on stage. So I show up at the comedy class and the guy, Pierre, was like, hey, can you do 15 minutes tonight? We're short. And I was like, oh, sweet. Yeah. So I like scrambled together. I think I did 12, ended up doing. I was only planning to do 6. So that went well again.
Yeah.
And I was like, but I know that's a padded room. So I was like, okay, that was fun, but I'm going to try to do Yuck Yucks once. Like, and then I can say I've done Yuck Yucks and then I can be done. Like that's it. It was a good run. So I did an open mic, Yuck Yucks once, and the owner was in the back of the room. I did like the new talent showcase, and he like pulled me aside after. And he's like, "Where are you from?" And first he's like, "Who are you?" And I'm like, "I'm Chad." And he's like, "Where do you live?" And I said, I live in Brockville. He's like, why the fuck do you live in Brockville? And he's like, that was good. How long have you been doing this? And I was like, I did it a couple times in college, like previously. I left that part out, and like maybe like once in like my mid-20s, just like for friends and stuff. But I was like 3 months maybe I've been doing this. And he's like, that was pretty good for 3 months. Can you do this weekend kind of thing? I was like, yep. And then like since then I've just kind of been out there like 3 or 4 times a week doing shows. So it was like trying to prove that I couldn't do it. Went from like I'm only going to do Yuck Yucks once to now like hosting
now
weekends at
you're
Yuck Yucks. Yeah, or kind of like I don't know.
What I mean?
They've sent me checks in the mail.
To me, that's an employer.
Yeah. So it's crazy. It's just been a crazy time. So that's kind of how I got into it. And I don't know. I'm like still doing my send an email every day. And I feel like the networking thing gets underlooked in comedy. And that's like my main skill in life is networking. That's what I do in my day job. So I've just kind of brought that to comedy.
That's smart. I always say like to comedians and aspiring artists is like, you're going to have to find a way to pay the bills regardless. Like that doesn't mean that you still can't pursue this thing that you're extremely passionate about. But what you can do to make the job suck a little less is find ways that you can like learn from it. And networking, big example, right? Like that's something that you learn from a job that pays you 9 to 5, let's say, and then transferred that skill into your passion to help that grow even further. And like the results are there, you know, you can see tangible results of like, oh, interesting. Like I worked on the radio, so conveniently I'm also good on the mic. Like I just have to, you're like the only thing left is stage presence. So it's amazing when you start learning like to apply those abilities and like seeing that in play with comedy in particular. Love seeing that.
It's so wild to me when I go to like open mics and I see someone, like I just feel like, and this might be the most boastful thing ever, that I just like picked up on the little things, the little like technical things, like kind of quickly. Like I see people at open mics who every time I see them, they're doing a brand new set. Which is like, I guess fine, but like also like you should be like trying to work through your
Yeah.
material and not just like this is a brand new bit every single time. The whole
Yeah.
thing's brand, you know what I mean? Like I just felt like those little secrets I picked up early, and like, you know, certain things. I'm trying to think of other examples, like little things. It's like I just like knew before I went up there to like move the mic stand to the side, you know,
Yeah.
that you don't like take out the microphone and have the mic stand like right in front of you.
Ooh, that
Or
bugs me.
yeah, I know. Yeah,
It's
I
so
think
distracting. You just see a
it
stand in front of them as they're talking. You're like, please, for the love of God, move it.
yeah, it's just like things that I felt like those things I didn't kind of need to be
Mhm.
told, which is like fine if you got to be told them, but yeah.
I found for me, it was a lot of like, not really so much like what to do on stage, but mentality was a big thing that I learned from a lot of like watching a lot of comedians and watching different like comedians you know, excel or fall apart or whatever. It was like the mentality of like what we were talking about earlier, like if something goes off the script in the show, like it's okay. Like you don't have to, they don't need to hear every one of your jokes. You know, you don't run
Yeah.
the clock, you know, like if you leave them on a good note, that's fine. You don't need to get in that one closer that you really want to do. It's like, so it was a big mentality thing for me.
Yeah, if you're leaving on a big laugh and your time is up, then leave on that laugh. You don't feel like
Yeah.
you have to get in that closing joke. Like I have literally ended on probably every joke I've had, like at one point or another, right? At some point, just because like, oh, that worked that time. That's it. You know, I'm at my
Yeah.
time limit anyways. But have a plan also.
That's a
Um,
fun thing to do, is to reorganize your set, like start with your closer and then just see, can
yeah, that's
I,
what I'm doing tonight. I'm doing
yeah,
tonight. Yeah.
wait, tonight, when is tonight's your JFL showcase, isn't it? Is
No,
it
that's
tonight?
next Thursday. So I
Next
decided
Thursday.
uh
Gotcha.
I decided to completely rearrange my set tonight, 1 week out from my JFL, because I like the chaos.
Yeah. You're like, let me really mess with my brain here and and try to flip this around. No, you're gonna kill it either way, man. Like you got really funny stuff.
I feel
I love
yeah,
that you're a
thanks.
Brockville hometowner too, because you're the only person who's come up to me, comedian that's come up to me before a show and go, "You don't have any Brockville jokes, do you?"
Yeah,
When we
because
did
I
that
got
show.
like I just like I shit on Brockville when I'm in
Yeah.
Ottawa. It doesn't work. It doesn't work in Montreal. But when I'm in Ottawa, I'd like shit on Brockville for like a couple minutes, and then I say, "So I'm from Brockville." You know what I mean? It's just like a
Yeah.
super stupid thing, but yeah.
No, it's a fun way to at least that's the best part about comedy too, is for me it's always the misdirect of that, of being able
Mhm.
to make them think that you're on their side and then just like, actually I'm the thing that I've been mocking this whole time.
Yeah, and that's fun too, because it's like you're not like, you know, if somebody there is from Brockville, they're like, "Oh, I'm from Brockville and I think it's a nice town." You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's like, no, I'm that piece of crap from Brockville. Like that's me that I'm talking about.
How long have you been doing the Canadian Comedy Hall of Fame podcast for?
Probably 2 years now.
2 years?
18 months maybe, like around there. Yeah, it just started as a way for me to make content for the Hall of Fame. And then I really, because again, my background's in radio. So I just really liked doing it and talking to comedians, and it's helped me in stand up in the sense of like networking and all that
Definitely.
stuff. Like, you know, sometimes I'll do shows now. I did one recently at Absolute, and the headliner, like in from Toronto, is like, "Oh, you're the guy. Like, I've heard your," and I was like, "Oh, that's sweet. That's like, that's the plan, is to like move everything forward, right?
Yeah,
With
yeah.
this, like,
Who's been
so
your favorite guest so far?
I've had, um, who's been my
Lorne
favorite guest?
Michaels, pretty big.
I was very short with Lorne Michaels.
Oh,
Like I
okay.
had like I had a question and a follow up, but it was still cool. I was actually at the Emmys last year. I got to do it like the
Hell
virtual
yeah.
press room at the Emmys. So it was awesome. I also got John Oliver and Jason Sudeikis. So that was like a cool friggin' day. That was awesome. But my favorite one is probably the kids in the hall. They were amazing, like Canadian legends. I was super nervous. It was early on. I'd interviewed people before, but like not really at that level. And then they just put me at ease right away, like made a couple jokes. I did it from my kitchen. The camera was like facing the other way. I didn't have the blur on yet. And it was like my stove was in and they like made some jokes about that, and it was great. It honestly like set the table perfectly. No kitchen pun intended. But yeah.
No, we'll leave the pun in. That was like almost a weird, I guess, I don't know, consequence of the pandemic is it made like Zoom shows totally normal, like completely.
Yeah.
Whereas before, if you had, clicked on a video and it was someone calling in via satellite, you're like, I don't want to listen to this. Like, there was just that natural, like, oh, it has to be in person. It has to be in person. And then we just got used to people zooming back and forth, which I love because, I mean, look at this. Like, we can do it from two completely different cities anytime that we can make it happen. And then we just go about our day. Like, I just see the convenience factor of it.
Yeah, I've interviewed people all over North America, and it's so easy. I actually did a press junket recently for the CTV show Shelved, and they were like, "Are you coming to CTV to do this junket, like to the Bell building in Toronto?" And I was like, "No." Like although that would be cool, like it would just be a complete waste of time and energy and resources for me to go do that, like
yeah, unless they're going to expense your hotel and gas.
Yeah, exactly. And like nothing changes in the sense of like what I'm doing. I don't have a video component. And it doesn't matter with a video component now. So
yeah. There's one question that I love asking my guests is if you could make a phone call to the 15-year-old Chad and give him a piece of advice based on what you know now, knowing it won't affect your current timeline whatsoever, what would you say?
First of all, he would be like, "What? You're not a professional wrestler? You
Yo, did we live the same life?
failure? What is going on? Yeah, you don't wrestle around the world." Maybe that was a little bit younger Chad, but I don't know. Like I was like very like I always wanted to do media. I would tell myself, "Hey, high school doesn't matter as much as you think it's going to." Yeah, and probably it probably goes back to that. There's going to be like opportunities come up and you don't take them and you don't know why. Maybe look into those opportunities a little harder. Like I had like job opportunities and stuff. I was working at a radio station at one point, and literally I was doing the weekend shift, and they were they posted the job for the afternoon weekday shift, and for whatever reason I didn't apply. I was like, oh, that's not meant for me. And then the job posting came up, and the station manager brought me. He's like, "Why didn't you apply for this? Like, we posted this job for you." And I was like, "Oh no!" There's stuff like that, just like where I didn't. So yeah, I would just tell myself, take some risks, have a little more confidence in yourself.
Goes right back to just saying yes more about everything, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Other than, I guess you were saying like you say yes more to opportunities, but what led you to that point? Because I love hearing about like the shift, if you will. Like even when people, you hear stories about people like, oh, this couple quit their full-time jobs and moved to Indonesia. Like you're like, damn, they must have hit a real low to be like, I need to shake everything up.
Yeah, it was the pandemic. Like honestly, I just felt stuck in the pandemic. Like I felt like I wasted 2 years of my life. Like it completely felt wasted to me. Like I was like doing the math on it and just like, oh my God, you only have this much time in your life and you just wasted 2 years doing, and everybody did, you know what I mean? It wasn't fault. And I'm just like, I'm never gonna waste any more time. Like I'm just gonna like go for it. I'm not gonna, like people are always like, whoa, that's crazy. You go to like Montreal on a Tuesday, Ottawa on a Thursday, and then you work a full-time job. And I was like, yeah, I'll sleep on Sunday. Like, it's not that big of a deal to me. I'll have a couple Red Bull throughout the week and I'll be good to go. Like, that's just because I'm tired or something. It's just like not an excuse anymore for me, like and I have a kid and I have a 8-year-old and I'm a single dad, and I still put in the time with her. But I'm try to be super present for her and stuff too. And then I wouldn't, I wouldn't want her to see me
Not
like
living your
phoning
full
it in.
life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, because I hope she does that too. I hope she goes
Yeah,
for
yeah.
stuff and like
I think that's
pursues something.
why having a kid kind of kicks people into high gear when it comes to life, because you're like, oh, I'm setting an example now.
Or it does the opposite. Your life becomes your kid, which is,
That's true.
which is like awesome, right? But you still have a life to live too, right? Like
And no kid likes a helicopter parent, like
no,
you do for
yeah,
maybe the first, like 7 years, 6
yeah,
years, and then you're
yeah,
like,
yeah,
I go
less.
away, please.
Yeah. I just want to play my Nintendo Switch.
Yeah,
Like, leave me
yeah,
alone.
yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think she understands the comedy stuff, but she's like, her friends have come across my TikToks.
Oh,
I was
that's
like,
gonna
oh,
be
that's
interesting.
bad.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's also, she thinks that's cool, that
Yeah,
I
yeah.
even am on there. Um, I had this one that kind of went kind of big. It was of my grandma chasing around the Roomba in her apartment and acting like it was a dog. Like she thought the Roomba was like a new pet. And that's like kind of, and people have been like, so like Molly, like at school, somebody said they saw that video and that was like her dad's video, and that
Ah,
was kind of like cool, right?
that's cool,
Yeah.
because then your kid gets to feel like a little bit of a celebrity, right?
Just for
That's
like
what's
a
gonna be.
second.
Yeah,
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 she
but
thought
that's
that
what's
was
gonna be
cool.
so interesting about when TikTokers,
Yeah.
those types of, where it's
Yeah.
like they're exclusively famous on TikTok. When they start having kids, it's gonna be a trip, because it's
Yeah.
like, my dad has 100 million followers, my dad has 200 million followers.
I hate those videos online, and my kid watches them all the time on like YouTube. Um, of like just like the family that just like tapes everything in
They're
their day.
so
Like
brutal.
that
I
drives
saw
me
one being
insane.
filmed in real life.
Oh, really? Where they're like, we're
It
going,
was
and like some of it's like
scary.
literally grocery store trips.
This
Or
one was
like,
like, my brother is, or my sister is fighting with me, like that kind of, because
oh
I
my
hear this
God.
little girl screaming at the top of her lungs, and I was like, somebody is kidnapping a child right now. Like, I'm walking through the park, I'm like, what the I'm looking around,
Yeah.
and I look off to the side, and there's a little girl over there screaming, and her brother is trying to pull something out of her hand, and the dad's just standing there with his phone out.
That's wild.
And then they stop, and then the dad starts pointing, like let's change locations. Let's go over here. He's pointing. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah. That's crazy.
I couldn't
It's
imagine like my dad being like, "Okay, kids, we're gonna go to the park and film this scene."
this
What?
fight, this legitimate probably fight you guys are having. We're going to, yeah, my dad would
Yeah.
never, like, he would
No.
lose his mind on us before.
My dad be like, "You're leaving your phone at home. What are you doing?"
Yeah, it's wild. Just ask like people like Jack Osborne if that's good for them, like having a
Oh,
camera
yeah.
in your personal life all the time, or
Oof.
all those like kids that first wave of reality TV, right? If
Any of the
that's good.
Kardashian kids.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's not good. Any like celebrity child, who like grows up in the super famous realm that they aren't being sheltered at all, right? It's
Yeah.
yeah, it's never good. No.
What
And that people are doing that on smaller scales, but
Oh yeah. So maybe, I don't know. I don't even know what the alternative would be though for your child to watch. Then if she's into those shows, you're like, I guess, but you're like,
not like if I'm in the room, I'm like,
yeah,
like turn it
you're like,
like
please
right
turn it
now.
off.
Like
We're
watch
watching
that when
Judge
I'm
Judy.
doing dishes in the kitchen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. I want to see people screaming at each other on Springer. Right?
Yeah. You just
But
watch a
like I
different
watched
version
Springer
of that.
as a kid. Yeah. I watched Jerry Springer. So what's worse? Like
It's so true. You're like, we can't even. That was horrible shit that we
it was
watched.
so bad. Like I like vividly remember when the KKK was on Springer, the one episode, and like I remember watching it as a kid. Like it's all over the internet now, and like the whole audience broke out in a brawl. Like I wasn't very old when that happened, so
There was
what's worse?
I remember seeing like a TikTok video of like an old, I don't know if it was like the Tyra Banks show. She had like a talk show for a minute because everyone was getting a talk show because they're like, oh, this is big money, right? Like after Jerry Springer, everyone got a talk show. They're like, this is the method. We're doing this. And one of them, she had a whole group of people behind her, and they were all wearing different shirts. And one side it said straight, and then on the other side it just said gay. And then there was a bunch of people in the front with a question mark on their shirts. And she goes, let's give a round of applause for the straights. And they're all like, yay. She's like, how about the gays? And they go all crazy. She goes, and the confused people.
It's so wild to me.
I was like, why is this televised?
Yeah,
Like,
it was, yeah.
Who gave the thumbs up on this segment? Like, what the fuck?
That's all those shows. There was like Jenny Jones. Do you know that story of like how that show like ended? Like Jenny. Yeah, I was like, I'm in love with my coworker episode, and it was they brought in a guy, and the unsuspecting guy who's on, and it turned out it was his male coworker who was in love with him, and he was like embarrassed, and then ended up committing suicide, which is, and the whole show got canceled, and then she got sued and everything. But there was all these like it's so like people, it's so funny because people now they're like, oh, all this stuff on the YouTube. I was like, no, that stuff was always happening. Like it was just on a different format, right?
And there was no alternatives. The thing with like YouTube is you don't like it, you can go to 5 different platforms and watch any number of content. Like it's literally limitless. You're choosing to watch it. Yeah, that's the thing, is people like, my algorithm is feeding me. It's like, it's you. It's a mirror. The algorithm is just a mirror of what you like. So whatever content you're getting, that's what you're engaging most with. Like my shit is skateboarding videos, wrestling, and comedy. That's it. That's all I see on my feeds.
My Facebook is just like wrestling dirt sheets.
I love those.
Me too. I will like go months without watching pro wrestling. Like I'll tune in at like WrestleMania, Royal Rumble for WWE, but I will know everything that's happening because I read every dirt sheet every single day.
I kind of watch wrestling the same way I watch any other sports league. It's like I just want to watch the playoffs. I just want to watch when there's stakes and when there's shit that matters, you know.
I watched last night because there was a cage match in AEW. So
AEW is exciting. Like it feels different from all the other kind of pop-up leagues that have come along the way, like TNA Impact, like WCW back in the day. But AEW feels like, oh, this could actually work. Like there's enough good talent on the roster that they could just sustain themselves.
And it's different than the main brand WWE product. Like it's more geared towards adults, which I'm sure people are listening like wrestling's all for children, but it has that attitude era feel to it, right?
Those big personalities that aren't afraid to take risks because of a PG rating or whatever. Orange Cassidy is just hilarious to watch.
Oh my god, he's the best. Like the
MJF?
best. I love. I was there when. Oh, I love him though. He's the greatest. He's like always in character. There's like pictures of or videos of him like at airports, like, and people are like trying to, and he's like always on, always in character. Like
there's an amazing photo op of when he was doing like an autograph signing, and off the dad beside him is laughing, and then off to the side is a kid holding his nuts because MJF just nut checked him. He just smacked him,
which is wild, like wild to me. Like this
and
is,
they love it. They're like, this is amazing.
Yeah. Oh my god. The one was the guy in a wheelchair. The video I saw. And the guy in the wheelchair is like mouthing him. He's like, "You're the worst. I hate you." And the MJ was like, "You know what I can do that you can't?" And just stood up. Like, and I was like, "Oh my god!" Like, and he gets away with it. Like, it's wild.
Because you're like, he's just a heel character. Like, you could feel that it's not actually who he would be if he was like leveling with you behind the curtain. You know, he's like, I just got to be like this because there's people that are always going to have cameras on me and always going to be like, want me to be like on like I am on TV.
I love any niche, and I always call it like the same thing, like Carnie Lifestyle. Like anything. That's why I like hearing about comedians on the road. You know, I opened for Darren Frost recently, and that guy's been on the road for years, and just like hearing his like road stories going from like town to town. Like I love that. That's why I love pro wrestling. Like it's just like this carnival style of lifestyle. Like I don't care about the day-to-day storylines in pro wrestling. I want to know like what's going on behind the scenes. Because you have all these like characters and anything like that. I'm like so in on, you know,
fully
like
invested.
Like bands touring, like anybody that lives like a different lifestyle in the sense of touring or anything like that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So you have the JFL Showcase coming up. What next goal wise is on the docket for you? Because you went from being like, I'm just gonna do yuck yucks, and that's it.
Yeah, it's been I got that coming up. I'm like in the second round of a competition at Yuck Yucks in Niagara Falls, so I got that coming up too.
Nice.
I get to go back to JFL at the end of January, whether the showcase goes well on Thursday or not, which it might be good for me. It might be a little, I get to go hang out anyways because I'm a previous winner. So that'll be fun. And then I think like my next kind of goal thing is I just want to do some festivals. I've applied to a few in the States. So I'm hoping to get at least one of them. I would like to just do one just to have that like credit under my belt. So that's kind of like my main focus right now, is to try to do more stuff in the US, or do any stuff in the US, to be honest. So yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's always the goal for us comedians, is go to the watering hole, go to the bigger market.
Yeah.
It's always
It's funny.
America.
I've talked to people like Ron James, who tried to do it, and he was always like, and he was kind of like, yeah, it was fun, but it like wasn't for him. Like he has a great life here in Canada, so it's I'm not. I just want to do festivals, like, so I think, and that's where the majority of them are. So that's my goal isn't necessarily to like break out and start doing the States runs or anything. Like I just want to do a couple festivals. Who knows
what's
what
gonna happen?
Exactly. Yeah.
But if you guys want to find out what's gonna happen, go follow Chad on Instagram at Noonan Chad, at Chatterbox33 on Twitter, and check out the podcast, Canadian Comedy Hall of Fame podcast. Anything else you want to share with the people or want them to know about or check out?
That's awesome. Thanks so much. No, that's it. The podcast is the big thing that I promote. I have Tyler Morrison and Sabrina Douglas on the next episode. I know you've had Tyler on. I'm very excited to talk more pro wrestling with him, honestly.
We mostly talked about the metaverse and Decentraland and that.
Yeah, he's doing some cool stuff. Yeah,
it's cool. Yeah, go check out that podcast, people, if you're listening. Check out the one on Chad's and watch Tyler's on mine. It'll be two completely different conversations.
For sure.
He's a great guy.
Awesome.
If you're watching, don't forget to leave a comment, hit that like button, hit subscribe. As always, I've been your host, Johnny Rogers, and I'll see you on the next one.
You've been listening to The Johnny Rogers Show. New episodes air every Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.